Okay, and we're back. So here we are, Longmill. Yeah, so what have I guess the changes I've made in the short time I had. So I guess I'm at about 2 months-ish since I've got it. So learnings. Number one, probably big one for me is the software is a bit of a learning curve. The G-Sender stuff, like the actual software that runs the mill, pretty straightforward. But the design software, I went online, tried a bunch of different ones. I took a preference to easel, I think because it's browser based. I like the fact that I can be, I work from home, so lunch break, it's like instead of like coming out here and sitting in the garage and looking up at this monitor, which is way higher to sitting down, or having to work standing up, I could just, bring up my browser, log into easel, and I could work away on something, save it, and then when I am ready at the end of the night, come out, bring up the browser here, download the G code, and away I go. So I kind of like that it's that easy. It's pretty convenient to use. The downsides of easel being mainly that they just raised the price. So as a first-time easel user, I bought the year license, I've got 8 months left or whatever, 10 months left. But when that does elapse, they raised the price by 40% or something ridiculous, which seems like an insane thing. I work in that kind of technology field, and most people don't jack the prices up by quite that amount. That's a good way to lose your user base in a hurry. So we'll see. They may end up, after the first few months of running that price, notice their sales plummet, and they may end up going back on it. Yeah, so that's the one thing, software. So give yourself time, I'm still learning it. It's still, I think, one of those things. But the great thing is with YouTube today, you go out, find the guys that have been using it for a while, watch their videos, and it's funny, like you can sit and bang your head on something, and then you find a video and someone just explains it in a way that all of a sudden it just clicks in your mind. You're like, oh, okay, that actually makes perfect sense, and then you understand it, and then you make leaps and bounds from there. So it's well worth just browsing through. If you're on YouTube, I definitely recommend Bucky's Customs. Bucky seems like one of the nicest guys out there, so I really would recommend you checking out his videos. He's obviously he's a big preacher for the Longmill, a big fan of the Longmill stuff, so you probably credit Bucky for making it feel like a bit of a brotherhood, the guys that have these, for sure. So he's all about Team Longmill. One of the big things I think, if you watch Bucky stuff, that you learn is that these things make a ton of sawdust. So in Bucky's, he's got a lot of walls built, and he's much better on the cleaning and maintenance than I am. I don't really dust my machine down all that much, and I'm basically treating it like a factory tool. That being said, I am going to actually put in separating walls, at least on the inside, and probably something in the front. I find the rails get really dirty. There's a lot of dust on the screws and things like that, so I'd like to try to keep the moving parts as clean as I can. I'm very wary to even oil anything, because if oil and dust is just going to turn into this gunk on everything. So if I can get the dust out of those areas, and I'll clean them up really good, put some little walls up. I got some Russian birch here. Also, I'll cut some slices of that, and I can get a pretty high piece in here. There's quite a bit of space here. There's probably, I don't have a tape measure sitting right nearby, as we never do when we want one. Probably about 8 inches. So I'll put in some rails, put in something in the front. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do yet. It'll have to be something on a hinge or something that drops down, just because I generally like to put the pieces close to the front. But there's a lot of sawdust here on the floor, a considerable amount, and I'm always dragging a shop vac over and cleaning up this mess here on the floor. Just as even with the dust boot, when it hits a pocket, it basically throws the chips up and out and off to the side. So there ends up, even though the vacuum is working and it doesn't really clean up the table, so the table ends up with a considerable amount of sawdust. So I'd like to be able to contain that in here instead of always being on the floor and being all over the machinery. I guess I'm not going to be able to stop the dust up here, but we'll try to do the best we can. It's all I can do with dust collection. That takes me to the second part, being is originally I had a flexible hose running, it's actually a microphone stand. It's a microphone boom stand I have mounted, which I'll be honest is a pretty perfect thing. So if you have any field musicians locally, maybe they'll give you one of their boom stands. You can use that to hold your hose. It's adjustable, it's rotatable, so it's kind of a great tool for this. I had originally running to the shop vac that I built, attached underneath the table. Very quickly filling bags, so I went to a dust separator. This is a cheap Amazon, the ones just snaps on top of the bucket. There's basically just an in and an out and a small elbow inside. I think it was $30 Canadian, shipped and everything. So would definitely recommend that. It fills, if I'm running this thing on a weekend, if I'm on like here out here a whole day, I'll empty it 2 or 3 times. So it's a considerable amount of sawdust this thing will produce if you're really running, and especially if you got some lots of small things that are dishes where it's got to basically gut out the inside. It makes a lot of dust. Yeah, so those are probably the main things. So main changes being, so now I've since the Windows computers has died, I've switched over to a Mac. That makes me almost stuck with using Easel because of the browser. I don't know how many other companies have Mac-based software. For now, I mean, until that Easel license runs out, I'm fine. Overall, everything's good. I think that's pretty much the, actually the one last, probably not the one last because I'll think of it as soon as I stop this recording. The other thing I've noticed, I use Easel, and so there's the recommended cutting. So I've found that their recommended cuttings are pretty slow as far as the depth of the bit that it'll go per stage and that sort of thing, and the speed that it's running. So those things I have noticed and I've changed a little bit. I'd recommend just, trying your first couple pieces, try upping it a little bit, see what the differences are. And the other thing I found myself doing is I try to avoid using an 1/8 inch bit just because of the time. I make a lot of dishes, so when you're basically hollowing out the whole middle with an 1/8 inch bit and it's only doing a layer and then dropping and then a layer and then dropping, it's a ridiculous amount of time with an 1/8 inch bit. So I try to exclusively cut things that I can do with a 1/4 inch bit. So just doubling that amount of bit and having, I don't know, I always feel better having that much more of a bit in that machine. Like an 1/8 inch bit is a tiny bit to be running. I'm not doing any like precision carving. I'm really, making dishes is the main thing. So I find that to hollow stuff out quicker is really paid off. So I usually switch most of my designs. I'll design so it can be used in a 1/4 inch bit, and I'll even round out corners if I have to make sure the quarter can do the right job. I find, there's lots more blade there. It makes a really nice cut. Even I'm using generally hard maple for almost everything. And it does a fantastic job, the double fluted bit. So I would recommend that if you can. If I get into more of the fine stuff, then obviously I'll go with the 1/8. I've done a bit of the, carving signs and stuff with V-bits and so on, but the 1/4 inch bit is definitely the workhorse as far as I'm concerned. And especially if you want to do this to make money, which is why I'm doing it. I'm doing this as I want the mill to pay for itself, and I want it to hopefully pay for other tools in the shop. It's got to be working. So for me, it's like time. If I can get a dish done in 2 hours of cutting, take it out, put another one in, great. That's what I want. The 2 hours and down is what I'm shooting for. So I can get a couple of done a night, because again, I'm doing this, day job and then doing this in the evenings and the weekends. I'm one of those people, my personality, I want to have something in my hands every night. So it's like, I need to be making stuff constantly. So 1/4 inch bit, that helps. So I'm doing a lot of like stuff with bird's eye and things like that. So the 1/4 inch bit does a really great job. The bottoms of the dishes need a little bit more sanding. I've noticed that as time's gone on that, when the machine was first set up and I had everything just perfect, bottom of the dish was pretty much flat, like very little sanding. And then you notice this parts start to get a little bit of wear in them, that, the bottom of the dish may have some lines and things like that, so a little more sanding to do. I'm still pretty okay with that because it's better than I'd ever be able to do with a router. So I might be at that point where I may have to do some tweaking and tighten some nuts up and see if things kind of straighten out. Overall though, I'll be honest, I really couldn't be happier. I don't think I could recommend this enough to anybody. I really don't. For, those of us that are, we're looking for an affordable way to get into the CNCing. Supporting a small company is awesome. And anyway, we're, as makers, we're going out and asking people to support us. And this is kind of feels the same way to me as, supporting the guys in Ontario and getting a product that's made by these guys doing a startup. To me, it's like win-win, makes you feel good. And the machine does what it's supposed to do. I'm looking forward to watching Bucky's videos when he gets his laser hooked up. And that would be great too down the road to go into. I found even when I first started, I was kind of going down the route of I'll make stuff and then I'll offer to carve stuff if people want it. The part I'm having a hard time getting to, and I'm sure maybe you guys have had this too, is that it's what to charge, because I'll be honest, there's a lot of time involved. So to set something up to carve even just someone's name onto something, and to possibly screw up the piece, so you're getting a finished product and then trying to get it in the mill and make sure everything's just right, carving the name across the top of a gift box or whatever it might be, the amount of time involved, I don't can you charge more than $10 extra to carve a name? I always think what seems fair, if it's a $25 wooden box, you know, you can't really charge $25 to just carve a name in it. And I'll be honest, there's more time to carve that name than there is to make the box. So if you're in this as a hobby and you just want to make stuff for friends and family, by all means, I think that's the way to go. But if you're trying to make products and you want to be able to, like, you know, have shelves with product, and you want to be able to go to some kind of a market or a store and to sell the stuff, or even, you know, wholesaling it into craft stores, you know, you just can't take that kind of time. Honestly, I don't feel anyway that I can take that sort of time per piece. You know, I need to be getting stuff done and checking boxes. So, you know, while this machine's working, I'm right across the shop from it, and I'm working too. And it really is like having a second guy working. But like any employee, I need him to be working and making product. I don't need him dilly-dallying around. So my goal is to keep him working as much as I can. So yeah, so that's the main goal. So, you know, running into the new year, that's going to be basically it. I have no craft sales lined up for quite a while, so I'm going to be trying to build stock at this point. So again, taking what I've learned, you know, in the beginning of the end of the last year, I guess we're still in the last year, we're still in 2021, making product that I think will be portable enough that, you know, people will buy it at the craft sales, keep the price point where I want, like, you know, in that $20 to $25 range. And just try to make as much as I can and shelve it and have it ready to go. So when the sales start up, I can have a selection of stock that don't have to take everything with me. I can take a bit of each thing and then, you know, start to see what sells and then kind of go from there. Past that, probably the next big piece here in the shop, I want to try to do a video on my lathe, which I've had now for probably almost a year. Maybe more than a year. I'll have to actually look at when I got it. But I've got a floor model lathe that I've been using to do bowls and that sort of thing with. Another Craftex one for the Canadians. You probably are familiar with Craftex brand. It's a Grizzly lathe for the American guys. They're the same, they just paint them differently at the Chinese plant, but that's the same machine as the Grizzly. And the next big one for me is going to be a sander. So I did a ton of research online on the larger sanders, the 6-inch orbit sanders. You know, like everybody, you see so many videos with these guys with, you know, the Festool stuff, and you're like drooling. You know, I mean, I remember seeing it on This Old House was probably the first time I saw it, you know, and you're like, what a strange looking cordless drill, you know, because the black drill with the green letters. I had no idea what Festool was at the time, this is a few years ago. And now I find you can't go anywhere without seeing those white boxes with the green latch on it. So, you know, I was kind of like, oh, I think I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to like just keep putting money aside until I can get a Festool sander. So I got online, you know, and as we do now, and research YouTube videos and, you know, write-ups and pricings and kind of going through all that rigmarole. You know, I kind of looked at the Bosch large scale as well, because you know, I've got some Bosch tools now. It'd be nice, hey, match everything up, have it all blue, whatever. But I think I ended up pulling the plug on a Mirka system. It'll probably be a couple of months till I actually get it in the shop. When I do, I'll do an unboxing, but I got the Mirka sander and also got the dust system for it. So, let alone, you know, that most of the job is sanding, it seems like nowadays, especially now that the mill's running. I end up doing cutting boards, but then the stuff that I make on the mill, everything has to be sanded. So I went from sanding being, you know, 20 to 30% of my work to being honestly like 50, 55%. Because, you know, the mill stuff, you're not spending as much time in the fabrication side of it, but it all has to be finished. So there's a lot of sanding involved in that. And the regular cutting board stuff, still a lot of sanding. So I find it's starting to become the bane of my existence. You know, the vibration is hard on the arms after a while if you're doing a lot with just a, you know, a $60 or $70 random sander, a random orbit sander, which I got at like Home Depot. You know, so you find after a while, like, you know, it's starting to really get hard on the arms. The dust is really bad. The noise is bad. And, you know, and the result isn't that great. I'm using cheaper sanding pads and a cheap sander, and I find I spend an awful lot of time sanding. So the thought of getting into a more, I guess, honestly, a professional level sander, and getting away from the consumer level sanders will hopefully be a pretty big jump in my time. That's the goal here, is to save time. The other goal is to get the dust under control. I'm sure as any of you guys work in the shop, if you get done at the end of the day and go and blow your nose, can attest to is that even with a mask on, the dust gets a little ridiculous. And the harder the wood, the finer the dust, I find, when you're sanding. So between doing stuff on the lathe and sanding on the lathe, even though I have a dust collection system running, and then sanding all these cutting boards, my God, the dust gets out of control. I've got an air cleaner actually right above my head here. that runs as well, like one of the little Wen ones you get from Amazon. That helps quite a bit get some of the airborne stuff down. So I find there's not as much standing dust on items in the shop. But yeah, the goal is to get the dust under control, and then, you know, as we all hope, at some point you'll have. I see these clean shops on YouTube, and I always think, like, how do they do it? Because for the life of me, I can't keep my shop clean like that. Like, there's always sawdust and saw chips on the floor. Now, doing live edge stuff, it's impossible. You know, I'm always debarking things, and you know, you get a router out that whips chips everywhere. I have no idea how people are keeping their shops dust free. I can't seem to do it. Kudos to them. They're better men or women than I am, but I'll never get it probably that under control. But anywho, that's that'll be probably the next video I'll do will be an unboxing of that, I'm assuming. Hopefully it'll come in, you know, before too long. Past that, you know, I really appreciate you guys checking out the videos. I'm sorry if I ramble on here sometimes. I hope it's not too much rambling. I really appreciate all the comments. I read them all. I take them all to heart. I picked up another GoPro, a better one, and some external miking on it to hopefully these videos will have better sound and video for you guys. And yeah, please keep commenting. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. You know, I guess that's the encouragement to keep making this stuff. I'll try to make them more on a regular basis. Try to get some more stuff as we're building too. That's one of the reasons for the GoPro, is that it will handle the dust of being on the lathe while I'm throwing chips everywhere and that sort of thing. So we'll try to get some more close-up stuff done with that. Yeah, and I mean, hope you guys are all getting lots of stuff done. I hope you guys got a couple of days off to relax before you kind of get into the new year in the shop. Hope you guys all have a great Christmas, great New Year, and we'll see you next time around. Have a good day.